Well, good afternoon. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And tonight we have a double header. So we are going to talk bicycle safety. And this is always a hot topic for people because if you're anywhere in Eugene or Springfield and you ride a bike or you drive a car, there's a little bit of a battle that goes on between motorists and cyclists. And we want to help ease some of that a little bit. A friend of mine walked up to me one day at Full City Coffee and she said, "You need to do a show on bike safety." And I put a notice out to Eugene Velo, a bike page in Eugene, and found this man, Shane Rhodes. And Shane, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Sorry, I was working on getting those links up. Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Shane, tell people what you do and who you are.
So I'm the Transportation Options Coordinator at the City of Eugene. So I do a lot of the bike and pedestrian active transportation programming. So I help with Sunday streets, smart trips, all sorts of programs within the city to help people feel safe walking, biking, taking transit, using active modes of transportation. So we do that through infrastructure and non-infrastructure programmatic pieces. And so I do that with the city, and I'm also a league cycling instructor coach. And so I'm an LCI who trains other LCIs throughout the Northwest through the League of American Bicyclists.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to run something real fast here because we got to thank our sponsor, Coburg Road Car Wash.
Well, hello, Renee.
Hi, Rick.
You're sponsoring the show tonight, so I thought I'd get some video going through the car wash. Is that okay?
Absolutely. And it's a great day for a car wash. I'm so glad you're here.
It's never a bad day.
Never a bad day for a car wash. That is right. As you can see, everyone's coming.
Watch the show tonight.
I will. What time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, that's right.
Yeah, we're going to have a heck of a time.
I'm off here in a couple minutes. I will tune in at 5 o'clock.
So that's Renee and the gang down at Coburg Road Car Wash. We could not do this without our sponsor. So if you guys need to wash your car, which you probably do, please go to them. Tell them you saw it on Get Real with Rick Dancer, and we get lots of credit for that. And a free car wash. So Shane, let's talk about bikes. Biggest mistakes people make that they don't understand about bike riding.
Well, and I think, one of the things I want to, kick off with is that, what I like to think, what I want us to focus on is, using people first language. So, people riding bikes, people driving cars, we're all people out on the road, no matter how you're getting around. It's good to focus on the people and not the mode of transport. So everyone does stupid things out there. Everyone makes mistakes, so I want to kick us off by not placing blame here, that we're all, users of the roadway. So whether you're a person who drives or a person who bikes, or you do it all, let's remember that, and let's have respect for each other out there. So, for people who are riding bikes, remember to, obey the rules of the road, that, bikes are vehicles. And so bikes have the same rights and responsibilities. People riding bikes have the same rights and responsibilities as people driving cars. There are slight differences of some rules, like Oregon has this new stop as yield law, where people on bikes can treat stop signs as yield signs. And if it's they come to a stop sign and there's no other person who has a right of way, pedestrian or a person in a car, then they can roll through without coming to a complete stop. But beyond that law, most other laws are the same for people riding bikes. So you have to go in the direction of traffic, follow the signs and the stop lights, and even the speed limit signs. So even if if you're going in a neighborhood street downhill, like I was on my way here, it's still 20 miles an hour, even if you can clock in at 30 going down that hill. So all those rules still apply to people on bikes, as well as people driving. So I think that some of the main mistakes people make when they are riding a bike is not yielding or stopping when they need to. And, one of the big crashes that we see are people who are riding the wrong way, because if you're going the wrong way down the street, people driving are going to be looking the other way for car traffic and not see you coming. And, there are certain places in Eugene where there is two-way bike traffic and only one-way car traffic. And so people driving have to be extra careful too, because they may think they come up to a street and see it as a one-way car street, but it's a two-way bike street, Alder, 13th, as some examples.
Motorcycles and yield, they don't get to, do they get to do that too?
Nope. No, that's
Nope.
strictly human powered and e-bike law, the stop is yield ODOT law.
And really, this is for safety for people, because you and I were talking before this. Is I've seen people, especially on one-way streets, trying to get somewhere faster, so they're going the opposite way, and the arrow's pointing at them. and they're going. If the arrow is pointing your way, that means you're going the wrong direction, and you can get killed.
Right. Yep. Yeah, we call that salmoning.
It is tough when you have a green light and a bicycle blows the light as you are going on the green light. Very frustrating when you're driving a large pickup. Yeah,
I agree. Though I also got to note Steve's comment there before. I just buzzed them. Illegal. You have to give people who are riding bikes safe passing distance. The law in Oregon is that if you're on a street and there are no bike lanes and the street is greater than 35 miles an hour, you have to give enough distance between you and the person riding the bike, enough space so that if they fell over, that they wouldn't be run over. And so, you know, being respectful out on the road is important. And so that goes for people driving as well as for people riding bikes.
What about riding on curbs, on the sidewalks? I think that's, is that legal or is it not legal? I don't know, because I figure, like, good God, we've got bike lanes. Why do people ride the sidewalks? Because it's, when I'm walking on them, it feels dangerous to me.
Yeah. In Oregon, it depends on the jurisdiction. And so in Eugene, riding a bike on the sidewalk is legal, except for in certain areas around downtown and campus. Everywhere else, it is legal to ride on the sidewalk. But when we teach bike safety education classes, including bike safety education classes that kids receive in schools or our adult bike safety education classes that we do, we recommend that people don't ride on sidewalks, because sidewalks were engineered for people walking. And if you feel like you do have to ride on the sidewalk, because sometimes people do, right? Like, it doesn't feel safe. You know, before South Willamette Street had bike lanes, it was 4 lanes for cars, and the only place it felt safe to ride was on the sidewalk, right? And there's still places like that, 6th and 7th Avenue. You not want to ride a bike on the in the car lane. You could legally, but it wouldn't feel very comfortable, and so people will ride on the sidewalk. So what we recommended is if people feel like they need to ride on the sidewalk to feel comfortable and safe, that they ride with traffic, so in the same direction, not against traffic, and that they ride at a near walking or jogging speed, so they're more predictable. And then you have to, yield to pedestrians always. That if you're riding a bike, you can be on the sidewalk unless it's illegal in the downtown area, but just ride respectfully and yield to the pedestrians.
And that's a good place to go to here, Shane.
And can we take that comment down right there about running a red light? It's okay to. Because it's not okay to ever hit someone, even if they run a red light. It's your responsibility as a driver to watch before you go through a light. And yes, it might be illegal what they're doing, but we don't want to encourage people to hit other people.
So, Shane, the other thing that it would be great to address is that motorists, you were talking earlier, now I'm losing my train of thought. What were you talking about right before we went to this?
So riding on sidewalks is what we were talking about.
And I think motorists need to be really careful when they're watching people come up to crosswalks and that kind of thing too. And at when they're coming out of intersections, like out of parking garages and parking lots, because I think sometimes it's hard to see a bike. Yeah, exactly. And, I think one of the things that's important to remember is that it's, not only people on bikes, but when you pull out of a garage or, a parking lot, an alleyway, that when you first come to a sidewalk, that you have to stop before that sidewalk and look for the pedestrians, right? People in wheelchairs, people walking. And then once you stop there, then you can pull forward to see if you can look for cars and people that are in the roadway. So talk to me about bike paths too, because I see cyclists, runners, walkers, we're all sharing that bike path. Do bikers need to yell something when you're coming up behind people that are walking?
I'm glad you brought that up, because we're working on a path etiquette campaign at the city of Eugene, and so we're looking at different signs and striping, and some of our key messages are wheels yield to heels, that, people on bikes need to slow down and yield to people walking, that you need to moderate your speed. We're even looking at the potential of speed limits on the path, especially with the increase of e-bikes that are happening. So looking at, what's the right speed limit for certain parts of the path and whether we'll implement something like that. And then encouraging people to remember to stay to the right unless you're going to pass, and that you pass on the left. So whether you're walking or biking, stay on the right side of the path, and when you're going to pass, you pass on the left, just like a normal roadway. And we're actually starting to install center line striping, so solid lines around curves and dashed lines throughout other portions. We just finished a paving project on the West Bank path, where we installed striping along the whole section that we did. And we're going to monitor that and sort of look at how behavior improves, and start to look at how we message to people about, if you're riding a bike, you have to slow down for pedestrians and pass on the left. We recommend a bell, or if you do say passing on your left, say it far enough back that they can hear you, but then also that, because sometimes when people hear passing on your left, they hear left, so they instinctively move left. And so give them that little bit to figure out, what do I need to do? And just move over to the right.
Beware the fact that you're going to do a dance for a second there,
Right, yeah, exactly.
So Robin brings up a great point. Explain the green bike boxes. Robin says most people don't know what those are. And I think Robin is right. What are those?
Yeah, so we have a few of these in Eugene, and so a bike box is a place where the bike lane and a car travel lane come up to an intersection, and the bike lane continues, and the cars stop a little bit farther back, and it allows bikes to do two things. One, to get up front and be more visible, because one of the highest crashes that we see, the highest number of crashes we see, are what we call right hooks, and so that's when a bike and a car might be at an intersection at the same time. They get a green, and the person driving might not see the person on the bike to their right, and they just turn right. And so both the bike and the person in the car start to go at the same time, and the car right hooks them. So as a car driver, you're legally responsible to yield to the lane next to you. And so the bike lane, if there's someone in the bike lane, you're legally responsible to wait until the bike goes. Just like if there's a train track there, you'd have to wait before you cross the tracks, right? The bike lane is there, and you have to wait, and then the bike's clear. Well, this just gives the bikes that extra little bit of visibility up front, so that they can get through the intersection and clear the intersection so that people can turn right. And so they can gather up in that box. If there's multiple people on bikes, that they can gather up there and clear out faster and clear the intersections for people driving that much faster. It also allows, in some intersections, that if a person on a bike needs to make a left-hand turn or to get to a left side bike lane, in some cases, that they can do that at the intersection.
So Shane, what about on the road, like out in the country? Like I'm more of a cyclist and a bike downtown. I don't ride my bike in town. It scares me. Yep. So I'm out on the road, which that scares other people too. But what are the rules there? Because a lot of us, when we go around a corner, I think motorists don't understand, well, what I do is, and I don't know, you explain if I'm doing something illegal, I'll come next to my wife so that people won't pass us on corners, because otherwise invariably they'll pass us on a corner and put us at great risk. So what is the rule? I'm a vehicle when I'm on the country road too, right?
Right. Yep. And so the rule there is that people on bikes can ride side by side unless they are impeding the normal flow of traffic. And so that's a place where it's a little bit of a gray area, because if you're riding solo, you could legally be in the middle of the lane, because you need to ride as far right as is practicable. And that's not as possible, that's as is practicable. And so there are times where it is safer for a person on a bike to be in the middle of the lane to avoid hazards on the side of the road, right, or to be more visible, right? And so like you said, if you're out farther on a curve, you're more visible longer than if you're on the inside of the curve, right?
Right.
And so if you're already going to be claiming that lane anyway to be more visible or to avoid hazards, then it's the same as if you're riding two abreast, right? That car has to pass into the other lane to make a pass anyway, and they shouldn't be doing that on a curve, right? Because cars are allowed to pass people on bikes even on a double yellow if it is safe to do so. And that's something that people don't always know, and that they should know, especially out in the country, that, you know, if you're passing a person on a bike, you should move over fully into the other lane to pass that person on a bike. Because if you're moving halfway into the lane, then there's not room for another car who's oncoming anyway. So you might as well pull all the way over into that other lane. So just make sure it's clear in that other lane, move over and make a safe pass, just like you would a tractor or any other slow moving vehicle that's on the roadway.
I think what sometimes people don't understand that are not cyclists too is there's a lot of crap on the side of the road, like glass and gravel. And so I've had people say to me, how come you're not on the side of the line, or you're not all the way over there? And it's because it's not safe for me to be over there. And if you're not on a bike, you would never notice that, you know? And so that's something that's, you know, as I know this is a really touchy subject, because people think that bikes are sometimes out to, you know, do whatever they want and this kind of thing. And then bicyclists sometimes think motorists are just flying by them. And that's why we have these nice little things on our license plates that say share the road.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great question. I do want to go back to Harry's point really quick after I make a comment on what we're saying. Oh, and I just lost it. So
which one? Oh,
so what were we talking about? Yeah, so that one. But I want to come back to that after I finish that with what you were saying. And now I can't remember what we were talking about.
I'll leave it up for both of us.
Okay.
So we remember.
Great. What was the piece we were just talking about, though?
When sometimes you can't go over to the side, and you have to. We're all sharing the road together, and just giving each other a little grace.
Yeah, that was the share the road piece. Is that, you know, we're actually moving away from the signs that say share the road, because it shows a bike and then it says share the road, and so a lot of people who are driving are like, hey, bikes, share the road, get out of my way so that you can share this space and I can go by you. But that's not exactly the intended message. There are newer signs that we're using that say may use full lane. And so it shows a bike and it says may use full lane. And that's a little bit more clear that there are times where the bikes might, people on bikes might actually take up the full lane for safety reasons. And, in some places, I think with most people who are riding out in the country, that they want to be considerate and safe, and they will move out of the way when it's safe to do so. They want to get out of the way of the people driving. Yeah. But I think people driving might think, well, no, they're just in my way. Well, they have to be safe out there too, right? And but just to get really quick to Harry's point about the striping on the paths, I'd love to hear more of what he says if they feel too wide for a path, and I'm wondering if those are the ones that on the West Bank path that we've seen, because we just installed those.
Loves the fresh asphalt.
Yeah,
and then Josh says getting hit by a truck mirror sucks, even with a helmet on.
Ooh, yeah.
So the moral here is just we all need to kind of get along and understand that people aren't doing this to irritate you, and there's signage and it's really easy to look up. I think I really appreciate you coming out here to explain some of that, because some of that I did not know. But it is especially down in the university and that area, people really need to be being careful, watching for people, and watching the signs. I like what you said about sidewalks. If you're going to do the sidewalk, go with the traffic. Don't go the opposite way.
Right. Yeah, and I think there is a lot of education that still needs to happen, and we're working to do that. Whether that's the in the schools through Safe Routes to School, we do our Safe Routes to School programs do 9 hours of bike safety education with kids, and they're reaching over 1,000 kids every year. And so we're slowly working on, generationally getting more kids knowledgeable about how to ride safely and considerately, and, to be good road users, that even if they aren't going to become regular people on bikes, that they'll be drivers and they'll understand the rules of the road for people on bikes and as car drivers. So I definitely recommend I put it in the private chat, because I don't think I can put it in the comments. The Oregon Friendly Driver program is a great program for people who are driving and want to learn a little bit more about some of the rules of the road that we teach in our bike safety education classes. And I also mentioned that May is Bike Month, and I want to encourage people to get out and go to webikeLane.org. And there's a lot of great rides that people can try, join different group rides that are, COVID safe, and different rides that people can do on their own, and including some basic bike safety classes that we're going to be doing, including Lunch and Learn that I'm doing on a live stream event with Karen Goodwin and LCI with the Greater Eugene Area Riders.
All right. Shane Rhodes, thank you so much for what you do. And be sure to put all those links in the comment section because you know, it'll go to all those people.
Great.
All right, buddy.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks so
you
much.
for your time.
All right.
All right, we have a double header tonight. So we want to thank Shane Rhodes, obviously from the city, and obviously well trusted because the cycle community recommended him. Our next topic is we're going to go to all the way to Richland, Oregon. Which is way, way out by Halfway, Oregon, which is way past Baker City in Baker County. And this is Sarah Artley. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
How are you?
Not too bad, thanks.
It's been a busy day for you. So
Yes.
Sarah sent me an email. I know Sarah because my wife and I do a series called P&W Backstories, and we visited Baker County several times. We've been with them twice, winter and summer, and riding horses and riding on tractors. Well, right after COVID struck, Sarah and her husband did the craziest thing. Tell them what you did.
Yeah, we quit where we were working, which was a very safe location as far as from COVID's standpoint, but it had good jobs and they were secure. And instead we left that and bought a cafe in tiny little Richland, which has all of 175 people in town.
So what has this been like with COVID for you guys over there, for your little community?
Weird, I think, like everybody else. It's interesting, rural Oregon here. For those first couple weeks, everybody was really on board with all of the restrictions and the rules and flatten the curve and all of that. But since then, everyone just wants to get back to normal. They have ranches to run and businesses to run, and so for people here, honestly, a lot of them are at their breaking point, kind of like we are at this point. We have such a dispersed community and such a low population that the continued restrictions on our rural counties are really kind of ridiculous and onerous in a lot of people's opinion.
So tell them what broke the camel's back this morning. You went to the governor and everybody announced there's going to be this grant program to help restaurants like yourself. And so tell them what happened.
Yeah, well, to give a little bit of a background, because of when we opened, we have not been eligible for nearly any assistance of any kind, PPP loans, most of the grants. We got one small grant from the county, but that's been it. So we were really excited to hear about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which they assured us everybody would be qualified for, even if they hadn't opened yet, So we spent most of last week and the weekend getting all of our documents together and everything in place and filling out the sample application. And then Friday, I called the Small Business Administration and I said, the numbers don't look right to me. I'm concerned about going through all of this. Is this gonna be okay? And the person I talked to said, oh yeah, don't worry about it. That's just sample. And when you get in there, from what you're telling me, everything will be fine. So this morning I paid someone to come in and work so that I would have time to submit exactly when we were told to, day 1 hour, 1 minute one. Went through the application process, get to the end, and it told me we were not eligible for a grant because our expenses were not greater than our gross receipts. And it infuriated me because we basically are being penalized for not overextending our credit, and we have not taken paychecks. We're not paying ourselves. We have friends who've come in and worked for free to try to keep us viable. We have expenses we have not paid because the money was not in the account. And so my expenses exactly match our gross receipts because every time I get money in, I pay a bill, whether it's past due or whatever it may be. And so now they're telling me I'm not eligible for any of that grant money because I can't show that my expenses were greater than the gross receipts.
So because you did a good job and you tried to balance your budget. Oh, there's something Salem could learn from a small business in Richland, Oregon. You're being penalized for the whole thing. That is just.
Yep, we're penalized for working hard.
So across it, you have and this isn't to call anybody, but you have a restaurant nearby that's open. You stayed closed, but you're at this point now where you can't get this help. What pushes you over the edge where you just say, I can't do this anymore and I have to open up the store?
That's a really good question. We've had a lot of people ask us, when are you going to get to that point? We've said there could come a point. This may be the final straw, honestly. We have a lot of support from our tiny little community. We have a lot of support from our county and from our city mayor and all of those things for pretty much whatever we choose to do. But for us, it's a ethical and moral issue. I told you earlier, we do not tie our decisions on whether to be open or not to our bottom line. We don't think you can make good ethical decisions that way. But there comes a point when you believe that what your government or whether it's federal or state, whoever it may be, that what they are doing is unethical and immoral, and you do have to take a stand. And I think that we are just about to that point.
Because if somebody comes to halfway in Richland, Oregon, I mean, there's nothing but God.
Right.
And land. So it's not like you guys, if you have COVID cases that need to be hospitalized, they go to Boise.
Correct.
So then you're being tied in with all these 319 or whatever hospitalized cases around Oregon. So you're being connected from Baker City, Baker County, all the way to Portland and the Willamette Valley. How does that, as somebody how does that feel when you guys are, you know what I mean? Like,
we feel, I'll tell you that the majority of the county, I would say, feel like we are being singled out for some reason. Why is Baker County the only Eastern Oregon county that is being put under these restrictions using science? We're told to trust the data, trust the science. The problem is how they are applying that data and that science. We're not given, they say that these are the CDC guidelines, but OSHA is not, that's not the guidelines they're giving us. And trust the numbers. But honestly, Baker County's COVID numbers have been misreported. And I can't give you the hard percentages on this, but I can tell you the large number of the times that they reported data, it was misreported, and we were wrongly put into a higher category than we should have been in. And it feels deliberate in many ways, as if there's something going on in our state government that is purposely trying to punish Baker County. That's how most of the residents here feel.
Really? Because now, just tonight, your mayor was on, not your mayor, but the mayor of Baker City was on national news. She's been on our radio station here, KPNW, this morning, talking to Bill London about the move that they're making to separate themselves from this and get everybody opened up again. And I'm sure that's not new. I mean, she had talked to me a couple months ago about that. So do people there feel like this is that, they're getting punished for not just for the mayor, but for this, the move in Baker County?
Yeah. That's a really hard position for a lot of us. There's a lot of people who are very supportive of that and love that she did that. Excuse me. But on the flip side, we also wonder if that's going to cause continuing problems for us, So I don't know how to feel about that.
No, that's a perfect answer, because I think there's a lot of people that are probably feeling that way. So do you guys, we've had these people on, and since I haven't talked to you for a while, I'm just going to hit everything in here. Why not? This greater Oregon, this greater Idaho move for people to become part of Oregon, or away from Oregon and become part of Idaho. What are your neighbors? What are people in your area? And what are you thinking?
We've had a lot of discussions about that. It's interesting having a small cafe like this locally. We get to hear a lot of the stuff that you might say around. And people are interested. It's an interesting concept is what we're hearing. A lot of people don't know if it's actually viable, or good, but everybody wants to hear more. That's bottom line. Every single person says we want to hear more. We want to know if it's possible. We want to know what the ramifications would be. But bottom line right now, they love the idea of it. But people here are pretty pragmatic as well. This is not a place where people get, I wouldn't say a lot of them are like dreamers, that sort of thing. They want to hear the facts. They're pragmatic. How is this going to directly affect me? What are the steps to make it happen? That sort of thing.
Right. They're not
Overall,
people that are going to jump on a bandwagon just because
Right.
it sounds good. These are farmers. These are business people who go, we've lived in the rural areas too long. We've heard too much. We know that there's a lot of dreamers out there. We got to stop his yield law from the Oregon stop us. So there's a good connection between your two topics tonight. Oh, okay, good. All right, perfect. Shane, that's Shane talking to us about that other thing. So, so with this grant that you are not going to be able to get, so you haven't had the PPP loans because you weren't in business long enough. You got a little grant from the county, but so you're kind of now, as of this morning, you're stuck. And yes. So you either continue to just sell out of your place to people that stop by and eat somewhere else, or because you don't have any room to put outside seating, even though people think it's rural Oregon, but it's,
Right. Yeah, so we are in a really unusual position here. Our particular business owns no outside property. Our lot basically goes from wall to wall. I do want to say up until Friday, we had 0 options for outdoor dining. But our wonderful neighbors, the Eagle Valley Grange, I want to give a shout out to them. They stepped up and have given us the ability to put 3 tables on their property for a month. So we have 3 tables there. And then the city today also allowed us to put a couple small tables on the sidewalk. So we were able to get a little bit of outside dining just as of actually Saturday morning and then today. But what we're already discovering is that is not a panacea for what's going on with us, because what I'm finding is we actually have to have more staff to serve fewer customers when you have outdoor dining, because it's so far away from our normal base of operations, going outside and around the corner and over the gravel, and you know what I mean? And we are doing our best to continue to give people full service to try to keep that business here with us. And so we really appreciate it. That was a huge step for us, but it's definitely not a cure-all for our current situation.
Sarah, as a rural Eastern Oregonian, and you're almost as far east as we can get. I mean, you're pretty darn close. What would your message be to the governor? What would you ask her?
What would I ask her? I would ask her why we are consistently being thrown in the same mix as the more heavily populated counties. There's no consideration given for the dispersal of our population, of our low number of cases. I understand that when you look at it, they keep rounding it up, as if there were 100,000 people in the county, because that's the lowest number that we're given to on the COVID metrics.
How many people are there? How many people are there?
In the whole county, I can't give you an exact number, but I believe it's less than 30,000. I know there's 9,000 in Baker. There's a strong 1,500 in these 3 valleys here, and then there's Sumter and a few other small areas. So we have a really small population, just like the rest of Eastern Oregon. So the metrics that are being applied here, just like the positive negative cases, it's ridiculous. The risk of infection here is so much reduced compared to anywhere else. It's not right that the rural Eastern Oregon counties are being lumped in with all of the higher populated counties as far as how they consider those metrics.
So what would your message be to just Western Oregon?
You know what? I think that's a hard one when you lump Western Oregon in, because we have a lot of Western Oregonians come here to visit. They love it here. They wish they could live here. They care. I believe that they care about the area, but I don't believe that most Western Oregonians understand the area. And so I guess my message would be to listen to the people who live here and try to understand those issues. And not just, I think a lot of the people want to do what's right. They, think that they have the answers based on their backgrounds, but their backgrounds do not coincide with the reality of life here.
So just listen to you.
Yeah.
You're experts at where you live.
Right. We don't come to Portland and tell you guys, or Salem, we don't go in there and say, this is what you guys are doing wrong based on how we live. We want to be able to live our rural lifestyles and based on our beliefs and our values and our ethics, and not be forced to live them based on a different lifestyle that is, the way people live in those urban areas is so far removed from what we do that it's almost impossible to find that middle ground to understand each other. The language is different, there's not a common ground there. And so I would love to see some way to bridge that. Jeff and I really consider ourselves bridge builders. We want to find ways to communicate with people. We like people, we care about people. And that's what we would like Western Oregon to do for us.
Okay, real quick, I want to give you a little plug. So plug your cafe. What's the name? What do you serve? And what do you do? Because, hey, we got people from here that are want to get out. So they'll come to Richland, Oregon on the way to Halfway and on the way to Hell's Canyon. And you got to stop by the little Richland Cafe and see them.
Yes. So Sarah's Richland Cafe, that's us. We serve, we have some of the best burgers around, breakfast burritos, biscuits and gravy, blow your mind. We have a little gift store with local homemade gifts by some of our very talented ladies here locally. We have pastries. I have bistro type things to go, like frozen homemade soups and casseroles and breads. And so we do a ton of stuff. We have our espresso side of the business with all of your espresso and drive-through type of drinks. And so they can get just about anything they want here. We do once a month an international dinner. So when they're in town, they can come to our international night and taste Spain or Greece or Basque cooking, all sorts of stuff. We do so many things. It's, anything to keep people happy.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for getting a hold of me, because I think it's really important that we hear what you guys are thinking over there as well.
Thank
and
you.
Also, it's nice to see you. Would you give your husband a hug for me?
I will do.
Okay. All right. Keep in touch. And if you, remember, I'm always open to listening to you.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Rick.
You're welcome, my dear. See ya. So there you go. Rural Oregon's talking, and it's good for us to listen and hear what they have to say, because this is all of our state. And I think Sarah made some awesome points about they don't come here and tell us how to live. So we probably should give them the same courtesy. And not probably, we should give them the same courtesy. And besides, when you go over there, you can learn a lot about yourself by hanging out that way. So there we go. Look at all this stuff you get tonight. Cobra Road Car Wash sponsors the show. You get bike safety. You find out how to ride on the road, how not to ride on the road. And then if you go over to Eastern Oregon, which I will tell you, that is a beautiful bike ride from Baker through Richland, down the hill and right into, there's nothing prettier in the world than when you come out of Richland and go down the hill and into Halfway, Oregon. It takes your breath away. And then while you're there, you can go out to the Cornucopia Ghost Town and you can look at all that kind of stuff. They used to run that place. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do here. I'm going to look here. Yes, some great riding east. Oh gosh, Shane, just some beautiful places out there. You guys, you need to get out and ride all over Oregon, because we do have some of the most beautiful places to ride bikes anywhere. So if you guys would do me a favor, share this on your page, especially if you know people who ride their bikes, especially if you know commuters who ride their bikes. And if you know folks who are business owners and are frustrated because they're applying for this same grant and they're getting turned down, let them know they're not alone. And, maybe somebody could look into it and novel idea. Maybe we could fix it. I know. There I go, stirring up trouble again. Oh, well. Tomorrow night, what do we got tomorrow night? Boy Scouts of America will be here tomorrow night. We're going to be talking to a bunch of kids. They're doing some really different kinds of things. And it's not just about boys, it's boys and girls participating in this. And if you have a kid at home and they're bored to tears, here's some real life skill things you can do. And they do it COVID safe, but they're going to be doing a lot more things like that. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be women's football. There's a women's football league in Eugene. A lot of them are police officers. And they're going to be meeting over at Elements Health Club in Springfield and showing us kind of what they do. And they'll be selling some memberships as a fundraiser drive too, to Elements Fitness. And then on Thursday, we got some controversy. We're going to talk about urban growth boundary. A lot of people talk about why housing is so expensive and why you can't purchase a home hardly for anything. It's because there's no land. It's because the city has not expanded the urban growth boundary in over 30 years. You're supposed to plan and have a plan in order. So we're going to have City Councilor Mike Clark in here talking about what he's seen over the last 20 years or so. And that's going to be sponsored by Parker Heights Realty. So we got a busy week this week. I will see you tomorrow night, 5 o'clock. Again, share this on your page because Facebook doesn't. I pay them, but they don't share it unless I do. So if you guys could do that, I'd really appreciate it. Have a good night. See you guys later.